had a talk this afternoon about cryonic suspension. I think everybody's familiar with, vaguely with what that is. I was going to do a straw poll at the beginning, say, hands up all those who believe it will be possible to bring dead people back in the future if they've been preserved. I think so. Oh, well, there we are.
When you say bring them back?
No, that's part of the subject, but some form of reanimation. Some form that they will bring them out of cryonic suspension and not reanimate them. But
like a clone type thing rather than...
No, I'll talk about that.
Dave, how many forms of reincarnation is there? How many forms of life is there?
Well, reincarnation, this wouldn't be reincarnation, this would just be reanimation. I'll talk about that. It was just the idea that, well, let's start with what cryonic suspension actually is. Incidentally, they've changed the name recently. Now they're calling it cryonic preservation. And as I understand it, there are not masses of people signing up for this. That there are currently less than 2,000 people altogether who are in cryonic suspension.
Does cryonic mean freezing?
Yes. Yeah. I'll go through what it entails. The idea with cryonic suspension is that, and it has to be within 30 minutes of death, you're taken into a cryonic unit, and as I understand it, they remove your blood and replace it with chemicals that stop deep freeze from damaging the cells.
Lucasade, they use.
Lucasade, yes, that's it, Lucasade. Exactly, the technicalities of this are really beyond me, but they claim that the body is held in a level of preservation that will enable them to recover the life at some point in the future, with technology that we just haven't thought of yet, way beyond our current knowledge. Now, the first about cryonic suspension is, if you're in cryonic suspension, you're dead. Cryonic suspension is not an indefinite form of life support, and it is possible now, and it's quite ominous really, how long they can keep people on life support and extend life that way. Because some people have been on life support for 20 or 30 years, I understand. And then when they come out of life support, and if they recover, regain consciousness, they then say, what's happened since I've been in a coma or whatever, and they say, oh, marathon is now called Snickers. Let's bring them up to date.
David Cameron is no longer any.
David Cameron. In 3 weeks' time, no one remember who David Cameron was. There was a guy called Kinnock on the radio this dinner time. Who is he? So it's not life support. If you're in cryonic suspension, you're dead. And you have to be, under the rules in America, because it's not available here, you have to be pronounced clinically dead and signed off by a doctor. You can't fake it. You have to be dead.
Well, if you're not, you soon will be if they take all your blood out.
Oh, that's true. Yes, it's like cremation. You know, at least you know you're dead. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you sign up for cryonic suspension, you're making a number of assumptions. One is actually the easy one, that they'll be able to cure the disease that you died of. You know, now I think that's the easy one. I think everything will be curable. I mean, they can cure half the cancers now. They've eradicated smallpox and polio, and yeah, that's. I think that's an easy one. That they'll be able to cure what you died of.
Yeah, but if in 50 years' time, nobody will know who you are. Why don't they want you back?
I've got something on that about the shock of actually coming back and having to be re-educated. Yes, and the trust fund that you put your money into for when you come out has gone bankrupt.
You
Well,
don't
family
always
will not
die
be.
of disease.
Sorry?
You don't always die of disease.
No, that's true.
You die of old age.
Well, you die of
Can
old
you
age.
reverse
Well,
that?
well, perhaps old age will be curable and get you going again and rejuvenate you. Rejuvenation. I think that's. I mean, maybe a society in a few hundred years' time where we all live to be 400 or 500 years old.
We'll all crowd each other out.
That's right. And
That's why I don't think
or
we'll do it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's something that a future civilization is going to have to deal with. The fact that everybody that's born tends to live. You don't have 10 kids or 2 grow up. And we all live a long time. And if we live to be 200, we're going to have to work to 170. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, because the machines would have taken over well before that.
Oh, yeah.
Possibly. That's an assumption. But machines have taken over and we're still working more.
Yeah, but more and more.
Oh, more and more, yes. That a lot
You
of
have
things will be.
robots in your house. And
That's
all
true.
that.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
nobody will be able to earn any money.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
The place will be so full of people that there'd be no room for ex-deads.
No, that's true. Well, Soylent Green attacks that one. There's so many people on the planet, and they have
Oh, well,
euthanasia centres.
yeah, that's the obvious answer, isn't
Yeah,
it?
and have euthanasia centres. Anyway, back to cryonic suspension.
We haven't left it.
Can they bring you back? I think possibly yes. There can be some form of reanimation in the future. I think that will be possible. What they're reanimating is another matter which I'll discuss in a few minutes. The other thing is that you're assuming that our technological civilization is going to continue more or less indefinitely, very long time, and that there will be a technological civilization in, say, 300, 500,000 years' time. Not entirely certain, because other great civilizations have just collapsed and gone into a dark age. And although they may recover, because there would be the remnants of the old technology, our civilization is not immune to collapse. That the civilization could just somehow go into decline and collapse. Solar flare. Something could happen, yes. So that's a possibility. So what would happen? You just got the electricity go off, and that's the end of it. But there just wouldn't be the facilities in the future, and a few thousand people, and I don't think it'd be a fantastic number. A few thousand people preserved would just be an irrelevance. Another thing is a future civilization, a future society, several hundred years in the future. Would they want people coming back? There might be a number of reasons. Firstly, they've got enough people already. Secondly, having to re-educate them. Also a bit like Woody Allen's The Sleeper, where they come back and these society is just so different. It wouldn't be fair to bring people back into a modern society. Also, if, say, in 500 years' time, we've eradicated most diseases, the people in cryonic suspension would still contain those diseases. And they wouldn't want to bring them out because you could be reactivating an old disease and bringing it back. So it may be that either they keep you in the freezer forever or they pull the plug. That would be at some point in the future. Another thing that could happen, they could regard people in cryonic suspension as specimens. There's a film called Lazarus where they've got Albert Finney's head 300 years in the future, and they're using it to watch football matches and stuff for entertainment. Because they've reactivated, they can get you reactivated his brain, and bring it up on the screen and all this stuff from the 1970s.
Well, there you are. They could use your head for that.
That's right. That's the only use. That's the only use they would have. For my brain in the future is to watch Burnley football matches.
Well, exactly.
That's the.
I mean, Burnley will no longer exist.
No, Burnley won't exist, but they would. The record of what a once great civilization.
How would you fit in with the theosophical view of the incarnation and karma?
Oh yes, I've got plenty on that. Yes, Yes. I'm just going through the
Yeah, so
the general technical side of it first. Right, we've yes, they might not want you back. Might pull the plug on you. Yes, a future civilization, future society might consider people in cryonic suspension suitable specimens to experiment on. Unthinkable today, but 300 to 500 years in the future, you don't know. They might bring you out and they use you to experiment on. So that wouldn't be.
Well, it's no different than extracting DNA and reconstituting dinosaurs, for instance.
That's
They're
true.
talking of doing that.
That's right, yeah. So that's possible. They're going to do the mammoth, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, we're short of mammoths.
Oh, we are.
Jurassic Park it seems to be whatever we think about
Yeah.
comes to action.
Oh, yes. Well, that's the joy of thinking, isn't it?
That's right. Yes.
Carry on, Dave.
Okay, yes. Right. I think we've covered the logistics of being frozen and brought back. Incidentally, there is a song this segment will put you into cryonic suspension. Freeze a jolly good fellow.
Oh, gosh.
I'm glad I came today. I could have been done for that, having an ice cream on it.
The method of preservation
Yes.
and their continued support while in preservation.
Yes, that's right.
Who's going to pay?
Well, you pay a lot of money for it. It's not cheap.
So it's not
Which-
for everybody.
Well, no, I can't afford it, and I wouldn't want it if I could. But I think it starts at about £200,000 or dollars. I think it's $200,000. Although how long's that going to last?
Yeah, for how long?
Yeah. I mean, I presume they're saying that they're keeping you indefinitely. They'll keep your head. It's a bit cheaper. They'll do your head for $60,000. Now, the idea again of coming back to head in a jar. I think.
Is that the price they're trying to keep?
It's a good song.
Be worse than losing a leg, wouldn't it?
That's right.
There's a centre in America, isn't there, where they're already doing this?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's on the internet. Yes.
Yeah. What about all the rest of the world?
Oh no, it's only going to be American. No, this is a bit like a film they made about the end of the planet that in 1959 that the Earth was destroyed by a meteor, or no, I think it was a comet or something. Something destroyed the Earth, but they could escape and live on the comet or something. And all the people that escaped in this spaceship were middle-class white Americans.
Yes. The word devils.
So we've got all the American presidents in cryogenic suspension.
They said they've got Walt Disney, you know, they're, yes, well,
Well, at least he was useful. He was good for them.
that's true, yes.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. It's a good one. Okay, it's,
Is it in the public domain who is in cryogenic?
well, I think there's some people who make it quite public that they're going into cryonic suspension. There'll be people like top baseball players and that who've said that who are in it.
Do you think they're just doing the rounds though?
They're doing the what?
Are they just doing the rounds?
Just doing that's it. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, back to the original subject. Right. Okay. What are they bringing back when they do bring people back? Now, Theosophy postulates that we are the physical body, and we are many. We are a constitution of several invisible components, elements, principles of man. On physical death, the non-physical parts of man leave the body. As I understand it, once that has happened, there is no way for these non-physical parts of man to re-engage the body. And I cannot believe that reactivating the physical body in some way would recover the non-physical parts of man back to the body, even if it happened 20 minutes after death. Possibly near-death experiences are a point at which it could go either way. but the non-physical parts are separating, but they haven't permanently separated. But once you're physically dead, the non-physical parts of you have gone, they've separated, and as I understand it, there's no going back. Now, there is a tendency for the non-physical parts to remain close to the physical body, and certainly in the case of somebody who's gone into cryonic suspension, who basically doesn't believe in any of this, because you can't, you wouldn't believe in any of this, you wouldn't go into it, then you would spend a lot of time divesting yourself of your earthly attachments because you believe you're coming back. It would take longer because you would not accept death. So the non-physical parts of man would spend a lot more time in the lower realms of karma loka, the spirit realm, and unable to move on. So that would be the first thing.
Or they'd do a runner.
Or they'd do a runner. Now, over a period, the personality, which is the composition of the lower mind and the desire principle, dissolve away. In fact, the desire principle dissolves away first, and then the lower mind. Eventually, an essence of higher mind combines with the Atma, the divine spark in man, Buddhi, the vehicle for the divine spark, or the vehicle for expression of the divine spark, finally with the higher mind, and those form the reincarnating ego that then move on into a devachan, a state of bliss, and then move through that to a new life. That's fairly straightforward. The idea that the physical body can somehow recover this, I think, is a nonsense. I think that's it. Once those have gone, that's it. You can't recover any connection with the non-physical parts of you.
But do you remember we read that if you have a leg cut off, for instance, then the non-physical parts of you disappear anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Because
your
there's not a
etheric body
leg there
changes
to,
shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
The body of prana
Yeah.
changes shape. Yes, and
Yeah. So
and
if
the
you're
grafted-
dead, the whole lot will fizzle out.
that's right. It will just dissolve away. And I think the main concern for, I would say, is the length of time it would take to move away from physical life on to the after-death states and to a new life, and it would pull you back. The fact that your body's been preserved and you died believing you were going to come back into the physical body, or the physical body was going to be made to live again, however you want to put it.
Mess everything up, wouldn't it?
Sorry?
It would mess everything up.
That's right. It'd be very, very difficult to move on, that attachment. In fact, Hindus, a traditional Hindu cremation funeral is 6 o'clock the morning after death, so that the non-physical parts of man have nothing to attach to the physical body, and they just get on their way. It's not, as my mother said, because it's a hot country. Also it stops vampires.
I was just going to say, how about other entities using the body?
I was discussing that with Alice on Friday. She's mentioned this, that discarnate entities on the astral plane could take possession of a cryogenically suspended body.
Yeah.
So yes, that is something for consideration. What I was going to talk more about was what actually, if they reanimate, I don't think they revive, reanimate a physical body, because the brain, if the brain was, well, tissue could be reanimated, I think, because they've done things. Even Frankenstein, the story came from a guy who used to electrocute corpses and make them jump about, and he used to do this to big crowds, in front of big crowds. And They didn't have no telly in those days. Yeah, and they used to have electrocute these corpses up and jumping about. And he was Italian, I think, and he had to go back to Italy because during one of his demonstrations, somebody said this is the work of Satan.
Yeah.
And I could understand why they said that. And he had to eventually leave the country. But you were, in a way, reanimating the body, but you weren't bringing people back. In the same way, I think that it'd be possible to reanimate tissue and, most importantly, to reactivate or reanimate the physical brain, and the neural impulses in the brain would be going again. Now, whether memory would be there, habit, memory, a shadow of the person that's lived would still be there. You can't say.
I was going to say, well,
But there's no mental body, there's no mental body, there's no desire body.
When somebody has a hand removed and it, they can have sort of a dead body's hand stuck on, that's reanimating.
That's true, yes. And some of the characteristics, when they have a transplant, of the person they have a transplant from, emerge in the recipient.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and what about karma as well? Do you continue your karma or?
The karma, it must affect your karma. Exactly how it would do that. Well, you haven't accepted the cycle of death and rebirth. And that would be something that you've reinforced your attachment to the physical body and to physical life by doing this. So there would be a karmic debt to settle over that, I think.
And would you be sort of, it's not right that you should play God in a way by
although
suspending.
we extend life now beyond average life expectancy for men in 1910 in this country was 47. That's when they brought pensions in. So anybody making to 65 for a pension, it was something.
But I think anything that helps people, like amputees and all of that, all that. But when you're talking about, I guess the nub of it is consciousness. If you can with cryogenic suspension, if you can bring back that person's consciousness, that would be playing God, wouldn't it? Really?
Well, yes. What they're attempting to do, because they can't believe in the constitution of man or anything like that, they can't believe in any of that, in order to try to do this, is to bring the person back as if they'd been asleep, basically. It's the same person who comes back. But what they bring back is a physical body which they've reanimated, but it has no desire principle, no mental body, no thought principle. Possibly the higher principles, reincarnating ego, have moved on by this time, like reincarnated. So what exactly has been brought back? And we've been studying a book, The Chakras, highly recommended. And Dora van Gelder Kunst has been viewing people with serious psychological disorders and looking at the interaction of their etheric, astral and mental bodies, and comparing them with medical notes from regular doctors, which she hasn't seen before she does her analysis. And things like autism, what's that other one, the Down syndrome, schizophrenia and obsessive compulsive disorder, they all involve some dysfunction or dislocation of these bodies. It's quite you can read its own book.
When you say body, the chakras, is it?
But it's true that the chakras are part of it. Sometimes the chakras are damaged, but it's the non-physical parts of man, the prana, the etheric body, the desire body, or astral body, astral emotional body, and the mind or lower manus, practical mind. All of those interact, and if they don't interact properly, then it results in dysfunctions in the physical body or in the basically behavioural dysfunctions or sometimes physical dysfunctions. And what would happen if you brought somebody back and they didn't have any of these, they just have the physical body? And would it be a shadow, like an
zombies, wouldn't it?
Zombies, a living dead. I mean, this may be something that we'll find out in the future, because they may bring someone out of chronic suspension and get them going again. It's a great fanfare, major medical breakthrough, Nobel Prize stuff, you know, I can just imagine that. But
now, Mr. Disney, what will your next film be?
Yes. So we can't really say. I mean, Frankenstein's monster comes to mind, but a soulless being, what would be the result of that? We can only speculate on what would actually be revived. Whether the person would get up from chronic suspension and appear to function normally because of the stored neural impulses in the brain and the personality, a shadow or a recording of the personality and the thought process and everything were there.
But even when you've been in hospital and in bed for a few weeks, your muscle tone diminishes to the point, especially when you're old.
Yes, that's right. Even
that
6 months in bed, you can't walk. Yeah.
So what are they going to do? I mean, they have these sort of skeletons with saggy muscles.
Well,
and no brain.
There would have to be a complete program of rehabilitation and have you exercising. They'd have to have people there to re-educate you, to show you the 500 years of technology. I mean, bad enough for somebody coming back from 50 years ago, because the first guy frozen was 1967. So that's 49 years ago now. He wouldn't have seen computers, mobile phones. You know, he'd have to be brought up to speed with the internet. All sorts of digital technology won't be familiar with, plus social changes.
I think the key word for me is consciousness, and I think it will never be possible. You might be able to clone people, whatever, but this will never be possible to bring back someone's consciousness, because you can't interfere to that degree with nature.
No, I agree. That somehow there wouldn't be the self-awareness, possibly. What would be going on inside the brain of a person in that situation? You can't really know, but it may be possible that they could appear to be the person because of the stored neural impulses that they've reactivated in the brain.
But I think the people who do it now, they sort of imagine it's like, you know, if you die writing a letter, you've got 50 years' time, you're going to be brought back and you'll carry on with the sentence, you know.
Yeah. That's right.
No.
Well, they did a very short play about a guy brought back 500 years in the future, and he'd been knocked down by a car, and he's thrown about, did anyone get the number? And he said, no, I didn't. He said, don't need to bother about this now, you know. And there was a play. Winston Churchill, it was 25th anniversary of Winston Churchill's death, which would be 1990, and it was a play, just with two guys in it, and one was Winston Churchill brought out of chronic suspension, and the other was a guy who was assigned to re-educate him as to how Britain had changed since he died. And the play is a dialogue between the two.
Between policemen. That's what you mean.
What do you want his intelligence back?
Well, no, can you imagine Winston Churchill coming back in 1990 and finding out that, by the end of 1990, that his job was being done by John Major.
Britain was in the common area.
Well, he got spare at that one.
That's right. He drove in one of them. He didn't want us. I think it's all nonsense. I think that people who are doing it are nutcases, and that's my...
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
It's ego, isn't it?
A good way of...
Ego in the, not in that sense, but not the reincarnating ego.
I think it's modern technology challenging God, because we've got the intellect to use our minds, we've been given this creativity, and to me, you've got that conundrum, but to me, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to use our technology and our imagination.
So, well, we're developing our
we're
mind.
just learning how to use that.
We're developing our mind, and it's part of our evolution that we develop our mind. And just as in the past with our evolution, there are going to be offshoots and dead ends. As I believe Neanderthal man died out because he was not an adequate vehicle to take humanity forward.
It's a very mental approach, isn't it? Because I could well imagine that they say about brain impulses and about the body and degeneration, but I would imagine that in the future, as long as your cerebral is there and your memories are there and all the neurons are firing, that you wouldn't actually necessarily need to reincarnate into a biological body. You can reincarnate into a subterfuge of technology and biology, and I think that's a lot of it, because I think we're going to integrate much more and more technology in terms of implanting technology into biology. They're going to work with it. We're going to go with it. I think that's
But they're talking about brain transplants, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, that will be another interesting one.
That's right.
Like chicken babies at birth.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's
well, they're suggesting chips now for people with Alzheimer's, so that the short-term memory can go into the chip and then it can be pulled back out, because there's the short-term memory that's lost. So they're looking at storing short-term memory. It is crazy. On the other hand, if you were suffering Alzheimer's, it's the same with stem cell. If your back's gone and you can't move, if there's a mechanism through creative genius that allows you to then live a full life, then, and it's not necessarily from God, because we're an image of God. God created, and therefore we have to learn how to create as well, because He wants us to create.
These are
And
all
Alzheimer's
medical.
is one of the cruelest things, isn't it?
And it's compassion. You're doing it for
Exactly.
compassion. And I think that's what it is. It's not so much for this bit, like you say, people are crazy because of the ego. I think the intention behind that will backfire on them. But I think if the intention is pure, then these things could.
And there have been medical advances that some implanted in the brain to stave off Alzheimer's, yes. But this is not, in a way, trying to cheat the cycle of death and rebirth. Because even if we extend life to 200, we will, I don't see it, we will die in the end. If we transplant ourselves onto flash memory sticks or something, or whatever, however we do it, then the person themselves would in fact be dead. Like Data out of Star Trek, he's not, he's a machine. But he's happy, isn't he?
He moved up now.
Yeah, it's like, I know, you mean Star Trek's not real? You mean they don't speak English everywhere in the universe? Except Klingons. No, Data, he has all the attributes of a human being. He behaves like one. He's a likeable lad, and he's probably aware of his own existence, but he's not a living being.
Oh, I always thought he was. He was the one I liked.
And Rimmer out of Red Dwarf is the other one.
Oh, yes.
Rimmer existed. That's the sort of guys you want in charge.
Yeah.
That's the type of guys that are in charge. No,
That's right.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In fact, they've held Red Dwarf parties where people go along with a big H on their head.
I like Red Dwarf. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, he has to break it to Genesis. He's been in that's another one where he's been in deep freeze for 3 million years. Yeah.
There is a critique of the Frankenstein story that instead of having children, bearing children, that Dr. Frankenstein decided to make this monster.
Oh yeah.
So again, you can apply that to cryogenics. That you should reproduce rather than want to preserve yourself.
Well, the natural thing is that we reproduce offspring and then we phase out, and they take over. They reproduce more and they phase out. And
Well, is that how it works, David?
Yeah. The idea.
That's.
Yes. That's. Well, no, I only found out last week. Sex education's a bit thin at my school, isn't it?
Hence why you haven't got children.
That's true. I'm not sure. That's
I
right.
never taught him how.
Well, my parents, you know, they've had sex 3 times and they've got 3 children. Right?
And they realise what was happening.
Yes, that's what they've got it. Well, I think we've covered the basics of why chronic suspension would be a complete
You taught me
disaster.
really, I got my reader.